So the first thing that I want to do is laterally move to lots of different applications. And that's the best thing about applications like this, is you can immediately move to lots of downstream apps. And then even if someone detects and kicks you out of the Okta account very quickly, you've established legitimate sessions on lots of downstream apps that probably won't be cancelled when that happens. So that's the first level of lateral movement and persistence. In this case, I'm going to show it happening with Shortcut. In this case, Shortcut is using an Okta SWA login, so it's essentially just logging in with a username and password for me, which we can also steal. But I'm now logged into this app, so I've moved here already. And now I'm looking for some way to persist even further. And there are lots of very simple techniques with different SaaS applications to enable this. So here we're going to look at one example, just simple API tokens. Any ordinary user here for this application can create an API token. I go and create one here. That means even if I get kicked out of Okta, even if I get kicked out of Shortcut, my session is cancelled, I've got this API token I can use to come back later. So that's one persistence option. I'll then move to Google Drive, where, okay, what we're going to say is that in this case, we've compromised a finance user. That's the idea. So I've gone to their Google Drive using a similar technique. Okay, how do I maintain access here? Finance, that's probably the most interesting thing this user has access to. I'm going to make a sharing link. We've all used sharing links. They're designed for sharing things with external parties. They're also a very effective and simple persistence technique. So I've made that sharing link. Now that folder is shared, and as an attacker, even without access to the account, even if I'm kicked out of all those things, I can come back via a direct link that I've noted down in future. So that's another simple technique at the file-based level. And then we'll see a third example here. I'm going to go, oh, we've got to Expensify. Okay, just an expenses app. How do I maintain access here? Are there any simple techniques? Okay, this supports secondary logins. We can go and add in our own Gmail account. And then this is another common feature in SaaS applications. That means I can then log into this app using a different email address I control in future. So even if I get kicked out of the Okta account or kicked out of that email address that the user normally has, I've got my own Gmail account there to gain access. So we've seen effectively very quickly and easily laterally move into 3 downstream applications and setting up 3 other simple persistence-based techniques just from one single standard user compromise. We're now going to look at something slightly more advanced using a technique called SAML jacking. So what we're going to assume here is that though we haven't compromised like an Okta admin or a general sysadmin or anything, they're not, admins of Active Directory or Okta or anything like that. They're a finance user, but it's common when you've got hundreds of SaaS applications in use in an organization for there to be application owners. So in this case, maybe Expensify is an app that a head finance user might have admin control of, even if they don't have that for sort of core systems like Okta. So we find they're an admin in this case, and it's been configured for SAML-based SSO via Okta. And SAML jacking means we modify this SAML process. So SAML effectively means when you go to log into an app, it redirects to a different URL. And that happens during the login process after you've already seen the legitimate application URL. And so from a user's perspective, the original link looks legit and they're expecting to be prompted for credentials. So if you can redirect someone to somewhere malicious, it's a pretty convincing social engineering attack. And in this case, we're going to use SAML jacking to turn that into a pretty sneaky lateral movement technique. So we're going to go and look at the configuration that's already been set up to allow authentication via Okta. So this is my Okta bug crowd instance. I'm just going to go and replace that to my phishing URL, and I'm going to save that. And what this means now is that any other user that decides to access Expensify via Okta is going to get automatically phished. I don't need to send them a link. So if I go back to Okta now and I click Expensify, what you're going to find is it takes me to Expensify, requires the email for the SAML login, and then immediately redirects to my Okta phishing page as well. And a lot of users are going to fall for that, like even very security conscious users, even security professionals themselves can easily fall victim to this attack. And at that point, you can spread your infection to other users through this as a watering hole based technique. Okay, so hopefully that gives an idea of why the post-exploitation phase here is so dangerous as well. So imagine from an incident responder's perspective, it's very difficult to deal with as well. This is not just like an old school endpoint compromise where you just take it off the network if you catch it early. You've got a lot more to consider in terms of downstream apps and persistence options.